Thank you, everybody, for joining me. I know your time is valuable, and choosing this to learn a little bit about how to analyze deals like an M&A pro and identifying bad deals in 5 minutes flat. If you identify bad deals in 5 minutes flat, this is how you're sifting through deals. So we are going to talk about what financial report cards to ask for and why, what red flags to look for, income statements, balance sheet, cash flow statements, what formulas to use to score the business, and how to spot trends and improve and declining. So let's get into this. All right. Why are you here? You spend too much time on bad deals, deals that cannot be financed. And every single one of my students that bought my course, that's been on the phone with me, they will get these sims from the broker, or they're reaching out on an off-market deal, and they spend too much time looking at bad deals. You don't have to be a genius to spot good deals, but you must know how to disqualify bad deals fast. So here's my story. I bought Century hearing aids, I don't know, 7-8 years ago, and it had an ugly balance sheet. I spent countless hours, heartache, and money to fix this thing. I ultimately did. I just wouldn't wish it on you. And here's what Warren Buffett actually said about this. After 25 years of buying and supervising a great variety of businesses, Charlie Munger and I have learned not to solve difficult business problems. What we have learned is how to avoid them. So if you know how to spot a bad deal, you move on real fast. And when I say 5 minutes flat, I mean, you're not going to tell if it's a good deal or bad deal by the sim, because it's a marketing document. Sometimes they lie, but you will be able to tell in 5 minutes flat after getting the financial report cards that we'll talk about. Here's the first thing I look for when reviewing a business. Do they use accounting software? Yes or no? The second thing is financial report cards. Which financial report cards to ask for? Do they use accrual accounting or cash accounting? Are their books balanced? And what are the red flags in these books? And are they making money, reasonable debt, and cash in the bank? I look for all of these things in order because I want to see integrity in the business and their financial reporting before I see they're making money, reasonable debt, and cash in the bank. And we're going to go through each one of these. A lot of the times you're going to go to a broker, these on-market deals, and fill out the NDA, get the SIM, and they're going to send you these financial report cards in an Excel spreadsheet. I would raise a red flag on this because it's so easy manipulatable. The best thing to do is make sure that they're on QuickBooks, FreshBooks, Xero, or some other accounting packages. That gives you some kind of a surety that they're using financial integrity to do their books, according to GAAP accounting, which is generally administrative accounting principles. Here's what we ask for from broker dealer. I always ask for 3 to 5 years of income statements. I always ask for balance sheets, 2 balance sheets, same date. Usually it'll be at the close of the year, and it's always going to be 12 months apart. And the reason we ask for 2 is the balance sheet's like a snapshot of at that given moment of the equity and assets in your business. And the only way you can tell what's going on in this business is if you have context. You have to look at their position. Has it changed for better or worse in that 12 months? Cash flow statements, that's cash in, cash out. Same thing. It's a snapshot of the business, how cash is moving in, how cash is moving out. Same dates. It's usually like 12/31/2023. And then I asked for 12/31/2022, 12 months apart. And here's a letter from Warren Buffett when he was buying private businesses in 1967. He asked for balance sheets, plural, dated December 31st and January 31st, and income statements. So I am not alone in asking for these documents. It's done by these guys. Let's get a little bit into the cash accounting that you want to ask and what the red flags are versus accrual accounting. So cash accounting It only records those transactions which cash changes hands. There's not a lot of businesses like that. Cash accounting actually ignores the transaction until the cash is deposited. Now, there's no receivables, no payables, no inventory. And I think the only real cash accounting business is a cocaine dealer. So you want to make sure, you want to ask the broker dealer, does this business use cash or accrual? Accrual asks, did you earn it or do you owe it? And did you use that asset? Accrual accounting says that it's important to match the cost of the generating the sale with the actual sale in that same time period. That's what an income statement shows you, not with the receipt of the cash payment. And actually, the IRS requires you to do accrual accounting if you have inventory, and that's a lot of types of businesses. I also ask the broker dealer if their books are balanced. A lot of the times you'll see these small businesses, their books are done by the wife or, a bookkeeper. That doesn't mean the books are balanced. And when I say books balance, I'm talking about the equity equals the assets minus the liabilities. And that essentially means it's the net worth of the company. Balance books means those two equations equal, mean that the business has diligent recorded all its financial transactions. There's financial integrity in the business. Or, when I look for these three documents, I look for the income statement, I look for the balance sheet, I look at the cash flow. And you can identify if the books are balanced if you look on the income statement. If the company has earned $100 in net income, and then you go to the balance sheet, and then under the equity, you could see, is the net income $100? If those two don't match, the books aren't balanced. So it's kind of a red flag for financial integrity. And a second check on that is on the cash flow statement, if the ending cash, $75, matches the cash on the balance sheet, then the books are balanced. There's financial integrity in the business. If it's not, it's a red flag. And when I say red flag, I don't mean that, oh, geez, throw the target out completely, go on to the next one. Because if you're an expert in the industry and you can go in there, you've been in manufacturing for 30 years, you run manufacturing companies, this is like your fifth manufacturing company, and this company, what they're doing, how much it costs to run it, how much probably they're making, how much the price is, you can say, I can fix this. I'm not saying it completely eliminates the business, but it's a red flag. I just wanted to show you gaining confidence in a business and just stay on this a little bit. There's three ways you can get a little bit of financial integrity and confidence. There's reviewed books, which mean it's by a bookkeeper. They're not CPAs. They're audited. That's by a CPA. And then you do a quality of earnings report. Earnings report is really depth in, value of the inventory, where the cash is going, customers, how far they're ordering out. And there's cost associated with that. So if they say their books are reviewed, you are probably going to have a CPA look at it. If they're audited, a CPA has reviewed it. So there's a level of integrity there. If they've done a quality of earnings, you can actually use that quality of earnings report to help you raise capital for the business. Is that helpful right there? I didn't want to stay a long time on that, but here we go. All right. In every business, the goal of the business is to turn the assets into sales, into profits, into free cash flow. And we measure that. How effective is that small business at acquiring the assets? How efficient are they at converting those assets? And how productive at converting those earnings to cash flow? Every business is going to be different, right? Because every business brings their own management, their own culture, their level of efficiency and effectiveness. The best thing to do in these kind of industries is look at a lot of different businesses at what their net income is. If you're looking at a manufacturing company, you got a good sense that manufacturing companies do 10, 15% in net income, right around there. If it's below that, that's concerning. Then you got to look at, what are they buying their inventory at? How many people they have in a general administrative, work in the business and their payroll. How are they doing at turning those assets into cash flow. And by the way, if revenue exceeds those expenses, you're making money. The balance sheet, just a little of the explanation on this. All right, so the balance sheet. What is the balance sheet? You're going to, when you ask for this, it compares assets and liabilities of a business. It's things and stuff or assets, and it includes liabilities. That's what you owe, and what you own, which is the assets of the business. As you could see, here's the equity equals the assets minus the liabilities. The reason you have two columns here is you don't have any context if you only had one column. You don't know if they've done well, you don't know if they've done worse. Like here's, for instance, cash in accounts from 2020 decreased $30,000. That could be concerning. Accounts receivable increased. They haven't collected their, the jobs they worked on. Or accounts payable. That's increased. They don't have enough money to send. They owe people to pay bills. Either it's their employees or it could be subcontractors, something like that. That's the balance sheet. So here's some red flags, like low, insufficient cash. Always check for that. And the only way you could do that is if you have context. That's why you need 12 months apart. That's why Warren Buffett does that. He asks for 2. Mounting receivables. That's a red flag. If accounts receivables are moving up, something's going on with, could be macro or micro level, right? If the industry is going bad and customers that owe you money have not paid you, you got to find out what's going on there. Now, if you're looking at a business and it's a big receivables, you have to ask for the agent report. And that agent report is going to tell you how long it's taken your customers to pay you. If that agent report shows that good percentage of those receivables are 90 days out, that's going to be a challenge to collect, because something's going on with the business, your customer, that they're not getting paid and they don't have money. Low current ratio. What's the current ratio? That's current assets to current liabilities. Now, if you had a current ratio of 140,000 over 50,000, that's a 2.8. This is a number that every SBA lender is going to run in underwriting. If you have a 1 or something, that means your current assets are the same as your current liabilities. They are not going to lend to you. It should be as high as possible. The higher the possible, if you see something like 4 or 5, that's fantastic. Lots of assets there. But if it's low, that's a red flag. Loans in and out of the business from shareholders. This is kind of concerning, but a lot of these business owners use low interest loans to buy their houses, their boats, and everything. If you're going to go buy a business, you got to make sure when you do an asset purchase agreement that you're not buying any of this debt here. All right, large debt obligations. This is could be a big problem. This is $500,000 in this bank loan, and they had to borrow a lot of money to basically buy assets of the business. It could be equipment, it could be inventory, it could be any of those. But if it's a huge loan, that means you're going to have a low current ratio, which means you probably won't get any lender to help you buy the business, because this money is being used to fund the business. Negative retained earnings. If you see this on net income, you should see this. If the books are balanced, remember what I said, you're going to see negative earnings, net income on the income statement. That's a red flag. Income state analysis. Everybody's seen these. They know what they are, but this records sales activity of business along with the expenses incurred. Here's a dirty little secret that I don't think a lot of people know. The profits on this bottom line here, the net income, have nothing to do with cash in your account. Profits are a theory of whether those sales did or did not exceed the acquisition target's expenses. They're just a theory. You may see these businesses like, throwing off 3 million top line, and it looks like a 20% bottom line, maybe 600,000 in net income. Does it? And then you look at the balance sheet and they only got $30,000 in there. That's a problem, right? Because they're spending their money somewhere else, like to pay off debt, or they're just taken out of the business, or, I should say this. When you're an SMB and you're an owner and you own 100% of the business, it's your prerogative to do whatever you want with that cash flow. But if you're taking a lot out of the business, it makes it difficult for you to value the business if you're going to try to buy it. All right. Cash, on the other hand, is a fact. And that's where you see in the cash flow statement. That's where you saw it on the balance sheet. You can't spend these earnings at the bottom line, the net income. You can only spend cash, whether that's to acquire more inventory, hire new people, etc. All right. Declining revenue. We all know what that means. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. The company has experienced 3 or more years of declining revenue. It's not a good business to buy. It's not going to get to underwriting. Nobody's going to lend you money on a declining business. If you want to buy the business, this is where it's going and it's declining the revenue. This is a creative financing offer. All right. High number of other expenses. This always needs to be checked. If you see in the income statement, there's a whole bunch of expenses in other, most of these expenses need to be reclassified. If they are assets used to turn into sales, to turn into cash flow, they need to be reclassified in the right operating expenses category. They could be coming under advertising, computer or internet, whatever they are. If you see something with other and it's a big number, you got to check that. A lot of non-operating income. Non-operating income is from the sale of fixed assets, like you sold a truck or you sold a building. It's a one-time large sale, or it's the sale of an investment. It's like, say you had a small division that wasn't really doing well, wasn't fit with you in your business, and it was a 2-man operation and you sold that. That's non-reoccurring. That's a sale of an investment. All right. Inventory manipulation. It's a red flag when you see when a business can buy a lot of inventory and not record the full expense of the purchase or record the purchase at all. Or companies can also exaggerate the vendor discounts to reduce costs, or not write the inventory off like it's out of date. I've seen a lot of businesses that have come to me and say, hey, they want me to value and buy the inventory. Well, normally if you're buying a stock versus an asset purchase, you're going to buy the inventory. It comes with it and it's valued in there. But you have to check the value of that inventory. A lot of businesses, the inventory changed because their business model and their products changed. Some of that inventory, you could see up to 50%. It doesn't have any value to the business and cash flow at all. This is one of the things that you can only check if you're like an expert in the industry and you know the inventory. You go do a site visit face-to-face, or you have a quality of earnings report. But you got a good hand of what that inventory, how valuable it is to the cash flow of the business. Kind of another scheme with inventory is over-counting, under-counting inventory to present a nice, pretty picture, or phantom inventory. Negative profitability. Now, if you see a negative net income, even SDE, which is, an owner's trying to sell it and they has all these add backs like depreciation, amortization, phone, insurance, 401, things like this. That's not going to fix a business, because when you pencil it into an underwriter to lend you money, it's not going to work. They're not going to lend you. There's no excess cash flow to be able to pay the debt service on that business. If you see a business with increasing cost, that is also a red flag, and you got to find out why. Everybody's been through COVID and they know that it costs more for gas. It costs more to have inventory shipped over here. A lot of cost increased. Maybe the guy wants to sell the business because he can't charge more. There's a couple of ways you can fix that. You could either buy in bulk, or you're going to have to raise your prices. Those are 2 simple answers. This also means at the end, it's you can't scale the operations to remain viable. Let's go into the cash flow statement. Here's a picture of a cash flow statement side by side, 12 months apart, and you could see the increase and decrease, the delta. It's also going to show you the net increase, the cash from the operating activities, the cash from investing activities, and the cash from financing activities. That's the cash flow statement. The red flags here, large negative balances, may signify that the seller is spending too much on an initiative that doesn't generate an ROI. Every small business is out there going, okay, how do I bring in new customers? and they're going to try this marketing. They're going to try pay-per-click. They're going to try direct mail. They're going to try social media marketing. They're going to hire a digital agency. Some of that stuff doesn't work out. Negative or limited cash flows from financing. This is if they're borrowing money and they borrow too much. Because we're going to play a little game on these. I have weekly meetings every Monday at 11 a.m. Group meetings, and talk about, we look at businesses to review, deal review. Do we pass or pursue? A little game for business buying experts. All right, here we go. All right, here's a business we looked at, my student recently. The business broker said that it was doing 4 million top line, 1.5 million. And we asked for the financial report cards, 3 years income statements, 2 balance sheets. And this is what he sent of the combined properties. It's losing $270,000. Like, that's not financeable. We couldn't even buy the real estate. We'd have to tear the car washes down and put something up that actually made money and have a very, very long-term lease on this. It's just not financeable. So 5 minutes or less, pass or pursue. We passed. All right, here's a business that we recently looked at. It's doing $6 million, and there was about 4 or 5 locations. And the adjusted EBITDA, if you can see this, is 10%. It's like a service-based business. Like, something was going on there, and we just asked for the balance sheets. If everybody could see this, it was taking a lot of loans from the shareholders. The shareholders, owners, were injecting cash into the business to save it. And remember when a little earlier, this is one of the red flags. Loans outside from people to run the business. Its own cash flow could not support the activities of the business. It was taking loans from investors. Passed on that. All right, we looked at a battery manufacturer that supplied batteries, and we'd have to order a lot of inventory. We looked at this, and we didn't have to really go on any farther, because you look at these years and months, and it was, 50,000 lost here, lost 33,000 here, lost 163,000 here, 51,000 here. This was a cash flow nightmare. And the margins weren't good enough. We just passed on this one. Here's a business we looked at, and I had the broker send me something, and they had some bunch of gross profit, and you could see that the EBITDA was higher than the gross profit. Like, what's going on here? There's no financial integrity in this at all. Of course, he added these add backs, which is depreciation and amortization, but depreciation and amortization are not cash. They don't add to cash. They're non-cash events that help you in taxes. It doesn't add to cash flow. So we could not borrow money on this. So this was also a pass. We looked at this business. It was a medical equipment supplier out of Las Vegas. And we looked at the cash in the bank was $63,000. They were doing about $3 million, and the cash reserves were low. That was a red flag. And then we looked at the accounts receivable, which was almost $1 million, and then we asked, oh my God, what's the aging report on that? And a lot of that, some of that debt, I think almost 50% of the debt was over a year old. That means it's not going to be collected. This is not an asset anymore. We have to write that off. They didn't have a lot of liabilities. That's great, but this did not work for us. We passed on that one. Here's a business where cost of goods sold, we look at this, and if you could take a look at this, where in 2020, they're selling the same products. They've sold the same products for 10 years. Cost of goods sold went from $1.6 million to $964,000 to $500,000. We said, how are you reducing your cost of goods 3 times? So we called the broker checked with the seller, and the seller said, hey, we made a mistake on our accounting. We just changed accountants, and they have to reclassify that and redo the books. No financial integrity in that. As you can imagine, we passed. Here is the balance sheet on this. Cash and accounts They had cash on hand, $198,000, a lot of negative. They had a lot of accounts here, which was kind of interesting. They were, I'm not sure why that was like that. Today, that's not really a bad thing. And today, a lot, if you have Stripe has a reputation of shutting some people's accounts down. It's a good idea to split that up to mitigate some of the risk. Tons of accounts receivable. Look at this accounts receivable. $2.262 million. That was another red flag. You're like, where is this? Why haven't you collected the money? So this was a no. We said pass or pursue. Passed on this. This was kind of a funny one. The broker sent us. First thing, the problem, red flag was it's in an Excel spreadsheet. The next thing problem was we looked through this and looked at the income statement and go, what the heck is non-essential salaries and expenses, mistress and family? Yeah, the guy was being ethical about being unethical, having a mistress on staff. And we said, hey, if he's going to lie about this to his wife, kids, whatever, we are going to pass on this. This is a company we looked at in California. It was a security company. They lost a lot of money. Right? Every month they would look like they lost the money. And basically a security company is just somebody that, supplies guards, physical man guards to, malls and events, stuff like that. And for some reason he was losing a lot of money here. This was unwrite-up from a bank. They had $20,000 in cash, except they were doing, this is a small number, right? $1.4 million in total. And a lot of cash generated, but they only have $20,000 in cash. They're either not charging enough or they're taking a lot of money out of the business. Shareholder distribution, they definitely took some money out of the business and the books weren't even balanced. So we passed on that one. That's a red flag. So here's a business. They rebuilt transmissions in California. They did $6 million in 2022, according to their taxes. And then the broker said, why don't I just take the 12 months and make it look great? That's not what they didn't do $10 million. They only did 6 million something in 2023. So we said, look, this is just fluff. And if you go down here or right here in the top, like they do all these ad backs. Now they only made $219,000 in 2022 tax. Now the trailing 12 months, they took the best of the months to kind of make it look. That's a broker. They're trying to put a great big cherry on the top, make it look better than it is. Now, appreciation, amortization, those are legitimate add backs, but they're non-cash events. They don't add to cash flow. In fact, SBA lenders don't like that in underwriting. Salary to the owner, $334,000. He definitely took some money out, but businesses like this don't run by themselves. So that is not a legitimate add back. Life insurance premium. Well, if you get an SBA loan, you're going to have life insurance too. So it may be different than that, but that's going to be an expense on there. It went from $873,000 to $1 million, back down to $160,000 to $619,000 to $219,000. There was something's going wrong with this business where he's not turning those assets into cash flow. He's got to do a better job. There's got to be more margin on this. Unfortunately, we couldn't take this to underwriter. They're not going to loan on this. So this was a pass. This is a business we looked at closely. It was out of the Southeast. And you could see they're doing 6 million top line, but they're only doing 616,000 bottom line. They definitely have some assets on the business, $1.6 million in cash. Accounts receivable is huge. Almost $1 million. We don't know if that's normal or not because you need to, like I said earlier, you need two of them for context to see if that's an increase or decrease. They're fixed assets were a building they own, but it wasn't worth much, couldn't finance. They didn't really have any big liabilities according to that. Their ratio was great, right? Net assets to liabilities, the ratio was fantastic. Unfortunately, we have to look at the accounts receivable. Now, this is two things here on the red flag. The net income's a little small. It's like less than 10%. It's 9 something. And they have a lot of accounts receivable. You'd have to know a lot more about what's going on in the business and how effective, efficient, and productive they are turning assets into cash flow. There's a lot of these we look at, and we have to eliminate them as fast as possible. I just want to give you an example here. One of my students called Tom Diamond. We looked at probably 100 businesses. 10 of them, he's got 100 SIMs. And I said, nah, that's ugly. That's ugly. He got that financial report cards, all 3 of the documents. And then he found one that was really profitable, had a lot of cash on the balance sheet. And I said, this is what you go for. Say no fast, 5 minutes or less, so you can focus all your energy on a good business. If you guys want to join me, this is how to buy $1 million business at. I'm going to open it up for Q&A now. I'm going to ask everybody, stop share and open it up. Does anybody have any questions? Scott, Jose, Alex, Paul, Chris Larson. Chris Larson, what's going on, man? He's my Polo Marine.
What's happening, Chief? How are you?
Good, man.
Good to see you.
Who said that? Who was the other guy? Oh, Jose.
Yeah.
2 Marines. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody have any questions on this? This is the point. You know, I read this book. Does anybody know who the guys are on the All In podcast? Yeah, there's 4 guys. Chris Calacanis, and he said, look, I see thousands of PowerPoints from startup founders, and I had to become real fast at looking at the crap to find the good stuff. And that's the point. It's like you got to be able to see those red flags really fast. And then all of a sudden, like you invert it. I know what ugly looks like. And then when a great one comes on your desk, it's like glowing gold. That's what you spend your energy on. That's what you go. That's when you call up John. I can get a loan on this, but I need help raising capital. And I'll look at it and go, you're right. Let's go. Let's go get it. And you just go as fast as possible because money loves momentum. All right, guys. Anybody with any questions? That is basically my kind of presentations. The red flags look foul. Yes, this is recorded, and you can see it back on my YouTube channel in a couple of days. So, Scott, got any questions? Chris, questions? Paul, Alex?
Yeah, I do have one for you, just because, you know, obviously I've known you for a little while. You guys tend to focus on service industries or service businesses and stuff. I mean, most of them in the price points that we're talking about, despite revenues, you know, have a lot of warts in them. And they stink, some of them, quite frankly. As you prioritize, you know, what red flags are within the realm of possibility, do you guys find, either for yourself or your clients, those that are based on expertise, so you've got real insight, so you can quote unquote fix that red flag? Or as you're looking at it, I mean, obviously some of them are an immediate no-go for obvious reasons. Fraud, just something that is clearly just completely unacceptable, and is a dumpster fire. But I do sometimes, you know, wonder what are the criteria, if you have some, as to prioritize those that are a maybe with qualifiers and flags, and those that, you know, again, are you ultimately get to the deal that looks amazing. So what are for you just more areas for inquiry, and then others that are not necessarily a red flag in your particular view, if you just want to answer it for you personally, because I know you try to acquire businesses as well.
Yeah. So the whole point is you're buying cash flow, right? Yep. And that cash flow has to be there, and then you got to prove it.
Yep.
Right. And that's it right there. That's the priority, right? I buy cash flow. It's going to be at some kind of multiple because of the time I spend in, or the cost that are used to generate it. I'm buying cash flow. 2x, 3x, 5x multiple, whatever that is. Now, the industry is kind of separate, right? And I don't know how to fix all industries, but you can go look at the comps in the industry and go, well, what is it normally? What's the cost of goods for the industry? What's my gross margin should be? Should be 40%, or should be 70%? And some people are saying, or some people say 40% is fine, right? Because it's a longer sale and it's a bigger margin sale, or it's a bigger, price tag. So that requires industry specific knowledge.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Did that
Okay.
answer your question?
Yeah, I just think of sometimes, I mean, for example, I focus, it's a little, it's not different, it's the same, around SaaS companies, et cetera. And while the valuations are very high, again, I tend to look at efficiency. I tend to look at some other criteria, if you will, beyond the obvious things, which are, no-goes, which whether, again, it's fraud. I happen to agree that, having audited financials is huge, but the quality of earnings cost is usually quite high, and certainly most sellers don't want to pay for it. Buyers don't want to pay for it either, whether that's 100K or whatever the number ends up being for that Q of S. But for me, I tend to think of, because of SaaS, there are specific metrics which are different from, say, manufacturing or service-based businesses and so forth, where that sales cycle can be longer. So it was just curious as to what if you saw beyond the numbers, just those other again as a set of criteria, but it's close enough. So I appreciate that.
let me for like the SaaS industry, let me give you an example. I was a co-founder of a business a long time ago, like 15 years ago, called TurboSquid. It was a marketplace, right? Yep. We sold 3D assets to 3D artists. And at that time, there was no KPIs for marketplaces. We didn't know what there were. And it didn't really grow until the creative artists were creating stuff and selling to these guys, until there was organic growth and buying. Then those network KPIs were created. Yep. So if you're not in the industry and marketplaces, you don't know what those will look for, right? And it's at that point you say, I got to bring in somebody that can look at this and say, look, are they doing effective, efficient, and productive job of turning assets into cash flow?
Yeah.
Or can I improve it? Or can it be saved?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I agree on the quality of earnings. Quality of earnings are usually only good for companies 2 million EBITDA above, because it's going to be $30,000 to $60,000, depending on what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and how much work they have to go through in order to actually, get that, QFS, which is pretty thorough. So
yeah, it's thorough. I mean, quality of earnings is, they're going to audit the books. They're going to check everybody's accounts to make sure, all expenses are accounted for, all debts accounted for, all UCC filings. And UCC is doing background checks. Do you owe the IRS anything? Are there liens on the business? All kinds of other stuff, and morality clauses too. All kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I just think it's really inspiring when somebody pulls the trigger on that. But again, it can be a difficult thing to do with the cost and the time and the commitment and everything too.
Yeah, and I will say some of these, but if you're moving forward in this, getting your first deal done is critically important. And I'm not saying you say no to 1,000 opportunities. I'm saying you got to get one down, and there's going to be warts on it.
Yep.
And you just got to understand those risks. The worst thing is you look under the hood, and you didn't look under the hood before you bought the car, or you didn't drive it before you bought the car. Right?
And there's no motor. Yeah.
And there's no motor, right? Oh, I love it. Well, depends.
Looks pretty.
Yeah, it looks pretty. Is that a 76 Ferrari? Yeah, you buy the car without the motor. Because you could probably find
and it is, yeah, and that's a fair statement. I do think it's very much about risk tolerance and management, and what strengths you bring to the table or the team does. Obviously why your students bring you in onto deals is because you've seen 1,000 pieces of absolute stink and can either save them an enormous amount of time and stress, and just or green light something where there might be, that's a flag, but here are the 5 other opportunities that with these 4 tweaks we could shift the game in 6 months or less. So
exactly. Look, in every business, there's what they call, and if you've been in bigger businesses, it's called unit level economics.
Right.
Understanding what it required to make certain cash flows. If you want $1 million, you say this HVAC business, you need 5 trucks. They're each producing X amount, like say $200,000 per truck. And that's how you get to $1 million, which means if I want to do another $1 million, I need 5 trucks, another 5 trucks.
Yeah. And you understand the scale scaling challenge at that point, and where the bottlenecks are. Is it talent? Is it the acquisition of materials? Time to offer, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could fix the price, right? You could like, I'm stepping this up. I understand the risk. Buying a business that needs a little bit of fixing. Like I'm going to start painting the truck, show a little quality. I'm going to pay my people a lot more. And I'm going to charge more because it's 115 degrees here in Tucson, Arizona in the summer. And you want me to get on your roof and fix your roof? It's going to be $200.
Yep.
Just evaluate it.
Yeah, indeed. So cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Jose, Silva, Alan. Yes, you asked a question. Thank you. Usually great person. How do I attain a recording this? I will have it on my YouTube channel, which is YouTube at John Stoddard or Top M&A Entrepreneur. Chris Larson, risk to reward ratio. Exactly. I will tell you this though. Just kind of set your expectations. There's this stupidity tax that you will pay. Buying a business. Just something you overlooked. It happens. Like I bought a business and like there was a lot of bad reviews on those sites where it cost me $10,000 to get the reviews off. I didn't see it. And they were affecting everything with my organic search level. I didn't see it. I had to fix it afterwards by creating a ton of content to push that down. If I would have known about that, I may have reflected that in the price I paid. And also there's this little theory called the J curve, which means as soon as you take over the business, you pay that stupidity tax, and then you have the energy and the know-how to move it up. So, Alan, can we play pass or pursue with you on Mondays? Yeah, just look at the only admission price is buying one of my products over on my site. That's it.
Okay, I got like 3 of them.
Get on the call.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Michael, Mortiza. I thought he left. Israel, Shane, Paul, Richard. Any other questions? Look, you guys know where to reach out to me on LinkedIn. You got my emails or just ping me. Happy to answer the questions. Oh, new question here. Hey, Shane Collins, great question. The cash in the business, do we keep when acquiring it, add it to the purchase price, have for cash for working capital? It's a great question, and I will tell you kind of a weird way this happens. If you are buying larger businesses, like lower middle market business, the cash stays with the business. It's very customary. It's what happens. Smaller acquisitions, the owner always seems to believe that that's their money. And in a sense, they did earn it. They could take it out. But if they take too much out, that is like taking blood out of the system. That is the working capital. So they can either take it out and then have SBA replace it, which they will. They'll say, what's the working capital requirements? That needs to go in the loan. Or you reflected on your price. We were looking at a plumbing company in Sacramento, California, doing great. $15 million top line, 3.4 bottom line. And they pegged the working capital at AR minus AP, accounts receivable minus accounts payable, which was only $900,000. And I said, well, it shows your total working capital. The formula for that is total current assets minus total current liabilities for a given year period. That is your working capital. And that was $2.4 million. There was $3.5 million in the bank. And I saw in the income statement that it takes about $3 million to run that business per year. I said, well, I can't make you an offer. He can't take the cash out of the business. There's only 3.4 million in there. So we came to an impasse and had to pass on the business because they wanted to take the cash out, and then he wanted more for the business, the cash, and the valuation of what
I
they
hope
placed on.
this video has inspired
Fortunate
you.
for them,
If you need
what
help
happens
buying
was
your first $1
everybody
million
else looked at it
business,
too. There was
make
100
sure you
people
visit
looking
me
at
at
it. 10 people made offers on it,
dealflowsystem.net.
only looking at it for 3
If you
days.
like this video, make sure you subscribe down
It just
below.
happens.
Comment on it, share it,
It's
tell
like you're
everyone
playing
about it.
cards
And
at a
thanks for
table,
watching.
and you don't know what the other person sitting next to you, what their hand is. So did that answer about the working capital, Shane? Perfect. Thanks. Yeah. Look, if they take the cash out of the business, SMB, and you get a loan on the business, you got to put it back in. If they take it out and you're not doing a loan, that is taking blood out of the body. And you take 8 liters out of the body, it's going to, kill the patient. Chris, what's going on?
How you doing, sir? It's been a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah, man. Well, guys, that's it. If you have any more questions, let me know how I can help. You guys know where to reach me. Alan, I'll see you Monday, 11 a.m. We play Pass or Pursue on our group meeting. Just bring some deals, whatever you're looking at. Get out there with a broker dealer, get the sim. Let's take a look at it. If it's a business that looks like it's making money based on what the sim says, ask for the financial report cards. And you can really, identify bad deals in 5 minutes or less only after you look at the financial report cards, because those guys lie. I started. Yeah. All right. Mortiza. All right, guys. You guys know how to reach me. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Chris. That is the end of this presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, John.